sure. Ranking Member Humphrey and members of the committee, it's my honor to be here with you again this morning to provide sponsor testimony on House Joint Resolution 2. This resolution issues a call for a convention of states under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution to propose amendments regarding limited subjects. I've come to this position reluctantly with research, deliberation, and prayer. It's not the first time that we've been here. We've had this resolution in the last two General Assemblies, and it's my hope that we can get this accomplished this time around. Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution lays out two specific paths for amendments. The first is by Congress itself proposing amendments, and the second is why we're here today, for the states to call a convention. Both paths require ratification of any amendments by the states. So per Article 5, the convention process is laid out as 2/3 of the states, which is 34 in total, must pass a resolution such as the one before you today regarding this similar subject matter. Once 34 states have done so, Congress is instructed to call a convention in which each state would send delegates to attend. At the convention, deliberation, proposing amendments would happen, and voting on those amendments of the delegation would send any agreed upon amendments, again, like I said, back to the states for ratification. And that ratification process is high. 3/4 of the states, 38 states in total, have to agree before any amendment is added to our Constitution. This process is very difficult and by nature cannot be partisan. To amend the U.S. Constitution, it requires broad support. So House Joint Resolution 2 calls amending convention limited to the subject matters that I'm going to go through right now. We have three. The first is to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, passing a balanced budget amendment. We have no control over the printing and spending of the federal government as the state of Ohio. We need some constitutional limitations on Congress in this manner. And this is not a new issue. This has been going on for years and years, back to the 80s, when then President Reagan was pushing for a convention on this matter. Number two, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. This is a broad scope, and this would regard to a lot of the overreach and interpretations of the Supreme Court, which I'll talk to in a moment here, but this will be really giving more of the intended federalism system that we have where Ohio can make decisions for Ohioans. And the third is limiting the terms of office for its officials and members of Congress of the United States. So this would be a term limits amendment, proposing amendments in that vein. We're not specifying a specific path, a number of years. We want the conversation to move forward. So those are the three subject matters that would be germane to this convention. Our founders, specifically George Mason in that process, wanted this provision included in case of emergency as the state's position of last legal resort regarding federal abuse. It is there in case the federal government would become too expansive, too intrusive, and too unaccountable to the states. In 2025, it's not hard to see that our federal government has become too expansive, too intrusive, and too unaccountable to the states. Our current experience as Americans has become to live in presidential cycles. As much of federal policy is accomplished through executive action, and the state's role has become diminished. These policies, as we've seen, can be reversed just as easily as they were signed. Congress has abdicated nearly all of its authority to federal bureaucracies. It allows our military to be used without declaring war and recklessly prints and spends citizens' taxes to the point where we're now $36 trillion in debt, and the interest payments on those are quickly becoming the biggest budget line item. The Supreme Court has changed those interpretations of our constitutions in favor of an ever-expanding role of government through the General Welfare Clause and the Interstate Commerce Clause, just to name two. All of this unconstitutional abuse can be corrected through a state's convention. It is my hope that this committee will give this the proper attention and serious consideration that it deserves. It is time to force Congress to act in this regard, and if they won't, we must. I want to thank my joint sponsor, Rep. Willis, for standing with me on this mission, and I now turn to him.